Welcome to the deep dive. So, today we are cracking open a stack of sources focused on a really fascinating and intensely debated creative transition.
Hmm.
We're diving deep into Jennette McCurdy, the #1 New York Times bestselling memoirist, as she makes her very highly anticipated debut into fiction.
With a novel half his age.
Exactly.
And our mission today is, I think, threefold. First, we really need to establish the monumental weight of her previous success.
Right.
Second, we have to unpack the content of this new novel, the serious, difficult themes McCurdy is exploring. We're talking class, desire, power,
Wow, the big stuff.
all of it. And finally, we'll analyze the immediate, just intense public controversy that erupted from the book's premise alone. The sources give us a really unique look at this tension between artistic depiction and public interpretation.
Okay, so let's unpack this central question. It really sits at the intersection of her fame and this new artistic venture. How does an author who is so critically beloved for writing this brutally honest memoir about her own abuse and trauma, how does she successfully navigate her debut novel when the subject matter, an illicit student-teacher relationship, sparks these immediate accusations of, quote, romanticizing grooming?
Before anyone has even read it.
Before a single reader has consumed the full text, that is the tightrope she's walking, and we have the sources detailing, every single step of that journey.
To really appreciate the courage it takes to launch a novel with such a volatile premise, you have to understand the height of the platform she built with her memoir.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I'm Glad My Mom Died wasn't just a hit. It was a cultural phenomenon. A #1 New York Times bestseller, sold over 3 million copies globally,
3 million.
and it received serious literary recognition. We're talking the 2023 American Library Association Alex Award. This established her as a really serious literary force.
And the sources confirm that readers weren't just captivated by the subject matter, which was, of course, difficult. They were hooked by the way she wrote.
Her style.
Her style, yeah. It was frequently described as feeling just incredibly approachable, like you were listening to a friend recounting a deeply personal, often horrifying story.
That's such a good way to put it, that intimate voice.
It just disarms you, which is so rare when the themes are that dark.
And the insight into craft here, which I think you'll appreciate if you love great writing, is the structural sophistication she showed. People specifically noted that her narration actually matured alongside her protagonist. She didn't write with this consistent adult retrospective voice.
Right, it grows with her.
The narrative itself evolved. You start feeling the naivety and the narrow perspective of a child, and the voice gradually gains complexity as she ages. It's structural empathy.
That's a huge point. That ability to reflect psychological growth through voice that's what sets a great memoir apart.
Absolutely.
And crucially, even when she's discussing this profound childhood abuse, she maintained a sharp, dark sense of humor. That balance of darkness and genuine wit is kind of her superpower.
It is. It makes the trauma digestible without ever minimizing it. And, that creative momentum hasn't slowed down at all.
Not in the slightest.
She's currently heavily involved in an Apple TV Plus series, loosely inspired by the memoir. She's creating, writing, executive producing.
She's the showrunner.
The showrunner, yeah. And it's set to star Jennifer Aniston. That is a massive commitment.
It is, which is why the decision to drop Half His Age, this huge debut novel right in the middle of all that, is so significant. This is her first work of pure fiction.
A huge transition.
It requires going from recounting lived experience to building a fully fictional world. And she herself said that writing it was, quote, the most creatively fulfilling experience of her life.
So she's making a very deliberate pivot. She wants to see if that powerful voice, that talent she has for examining dark human behavior, translates into the realm of imagination.
And that transition is exactly what makes this so risky. She's leaving the protected territory of this is my truth.
And entering the very exposed field of this is a world I created.
So let's get into the specifics of that created world. The novel is titled Half His Age. It's set for release on January 20th, 2026. Hardcover, about 288 pages.
And for the audiobook fans.
Oh, yeah. She's reading it herself. It's a 4-hour, 34-minute download, which to me suggests she's carrying that same intimate conversational style right into her fiction.
And they are betting big on this launch. They're starting the tour with a major splash at the Town Hall in New York City on release day.
And here's an interesting detail from the sources for you. All tickets purchased for that event include a signed copy of the novel.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's a clear sign from the publisher. They anticipate this is going to be a major literary moment. They're leveraging that loyal readership she built.
Exactly. And here's where we get into the heart of the tension. The characters. We have Waldo, the protagonist, who's a yearning 17-year-old.
But the description goes so much deeper than that.
Oh, it's this incredible, overwhelming detail about her internal chaos. She's described as ravenous, horny, blunt, naive, wise, impulsive, lonely, angry. I mean, the list goes on.
That is not just a list of adjectives. It's a character thesis statement.
Right.
It's a portrait of a psychological battlefield.
Right.
By loading Waldo with that much internal conflict, she's wise and naive, forceful and hurting. McCurdy is signaling that this is going to be a deep, messy character study.
Not a simple story about a victim or a hero.
Not at all. It tells you right away that Waldo is actively, participating in her own self-destruction.
And then there's the object of her desire, Mr. Korgy, her creative writing teacher. And the sources are so careful to describe him not as some, charismatic, Byronic figure.
No, not at all. He's profoundly ordinary, even pathetic.
He has a wife, a kid, a mortgage, dead dreams, atrophied looks, and a growing paunch.
That clinical anti-romantic description is so critical. McCurdy is undercutting any possibility of a romantic fantasy right from the get-go.
By making him so mundane.
By making the man mundane, sad, bogged down by bills. She's using the description to shift the focus. It's not about the teacher being irresistible.
It's about Waldo's need.
It's about Waldo's need being so enormous that she projects meaning onto this very disappointing person.
Which immediately focuses the narrative on the power imbalance and the girl's desperation, not the man's charm.
Right.
So the novel explores all these complex motivations for her desire. Is it his passion for literature, his life experience, the fact that they might be kindred spirits?
Or is it the simplest, most classic motivation for an isolated teen?
That he sees her when no one else does.
Exactly. And through this dynamic, the novel tackles this ambitious list of themes: sex, consumerism, class, desire, loneliness, the internet, rage, intimacy, and power.
Wow.
It's an exploration of the destructive lengths a person will go just to feel seen. This is, literary ambition on a grand scale.
It certainly sounds like a work designed for nuance and critical study, even with that commercially edgy premise. And we already have some initial validation. The author Tom Perrotta, who knows a thing or two about dark suburban secrets.
He certainly does.
He called it a riveting examination of lust and self-delusion, and a reminder that our worst mistakes can sometimes lead us stumbling toward the light.
See, that suggests a strong, critical, nuanced approach within the text itself. That literary praise, however,
Stood in stark contrast
to the immediate public reaction. This is the modern literary landscape, where intent is so often divorced from interpretation. The controversy you need to be aware of began the moment the plot was announced.
A 17-year-old girl and her teacher.
And the backlash was instantaneous and fierce.
And the specific accusations just flew online. People called the book and the cover creepy, tone-deaf, and most pointedly accused McCurdy of romanticizing grooming.
Right, and the central public critique was really the choice of the protagonist's age and setting.
That was the lightning rod. Social media users just kept asking, she couldn't be a college student. Like, why a high school girl?
And that high school setting, with its inherently protected institutional power dynamic, immediately signaled danger to a lot of readers.
Which is the core conflict. On one side, you have the author's stated intent. McCurdy insisted the story is about exploring the complexities of desire and a girl finding yourself in a world designed to make you lose yourself.
So she's framing it as a vehicle for examining rage and power.
But doesn't using that student-teacher dynamic, the highest possible power imbalance short of outright illegality, doesn't that make the controversy inevitable?
I think it's a deliberate literary provocation, probably rooted in her own experience with trauma. If your goal is to explore power dynamics and exploitation,
then you go to the most vulnerable point.
You place the protagonist at the exact moment of maximum vulnerability. High school, feeling isolated, seeking mentorship. The question isn't whether the scenario is horrific. The question is whether the depiction is responsible.
And this is where we pivot into this broader discussion about media literacy, which is one of the biggest takeaways from the sources we analyzed. We see this observation that large communities of younger people, particularly on platforms like Book Talk, really struggle with the concept that depiction does not mean endorsement.
There's a fundamental difficulty there. Separating an author's choice to show a harmful event from the author's, approval of that event.
And this is often because of a disconnect in reading styles, right?
I think so. Literary fiction traditionally works through subtext, consequence, characterization. The condemnation of an act is built into the narrative. The abuser is mundane and miserable. The outcome is tragic.
But the audience now is demanding explicit expository condemnation.
Precisely. They want the author to stop the narrative and essentially tell them.
What this man is doing is wrong, and you should not replicate this behavior.
Exactly. They are struggling when the narrative itself is the judge and jury. The sources call this a Hays Code verbatim approach.
For those who might not know, the Hays Code was
A set of guidelines for old Hollywood films, where if a character did something bad, they absolutely had to be punished or reformed by the end. The immorality had to be explicitly stated.
That makes perfect sense. So in modern fiction, if Waldo is unhappy but still pursues the relationship for a while, some readers might interpret that struggle as the author endorsing the idea.
That even a harmful desire is worth pursuing, unless the author explicitly tells them otherwise.
And we see this trend playing out elsewhere. I mean, think about the reaction to her memoir. Some critics argued it was wrong to criticize her mother because the mother was clearly mentally ill, which sort of dismisses the immense trauma she inflicted.
The focus shifts from the victim's pain to the perceived purity of the perpetrator. It happens in fiction, too.
Yeah.
If you write about moral ambiguity, some people just argue you're endorsing the ambiguity itself.
It's like accusing fans of the Hunger Games of endorsing the Capitol's views just by engaging with the story.
Or the perennial debate over Lolita. Is it an examination of pedophilia, or is it a romantic novel? In all these cases, the public demands moral clarity from the author, not intellectual complexity from the text.
And that expectation puts McCurdy in a really unique position.
It does. She's clearly writing about power dynamics and rage themes she knows intimately, but the public reaction reflects this cultural fear that complex, dark themes might be dangerously misinterpreted as validation.
Even if the text itself offers a searing critique.
Right. She has to work twice as hard to prove her critical stance. That collision between an author's critical intent and an audience's demand for clear moral signposting.
That is the central landscape for Half His Age, and I think we've traversed that landscape today.
I think so. We've covered McCurdy's monumental pivot from memoir to debut fiction, the razor-sharp details of the novel, and the intense public debate it sparked about depiction versus endorsement.
So the final takeaway for you is this. McCurdy's established ability to tackle profound and uncomfortable subjects, which made her memoir so powerful, is now being rigorously tested in the more complex, exposed field of fiction. Her deliberate choice to focus on desire, loneliness, and power through this controversial lens of a high school age gap is a huge literary challenge. It really requires readers to meet the text with sophistication.
And that challenge leads us to our final provocative thought. Given that the sources around her memoir reveal McCurdy's own background as a victim of abuse and grooming,
Right.
the crucial question remains for the reading public to grapple with. How does an author's personal history as a survivor inform their artistic freedom, or maybe their perceived moral responsibility, to depict controversial trauma in fiction without being immediately accused of romanticizing it?
That line between telling one's own truth and fictionalizing a shared trauma is where the conversation around Half His Age is ultimately going to reside.